Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 9 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 26, 2022. It's 9 a.m. We're in the central jury room of the Ralph H. Walton Jr. Justice Center at 1200 West Pearl Street in Granbury, Texas. Today we are privileged to have with us a guy that I met with one of our leading citizens, Janelle Took, at Hofbrau. And she says, why doesn't my pastor ever get invited to come up here and do the invocation? And he's with me, and I said, well, we can change that starting today. So he's been here several times with us, Pastor Michael Edwards from the Long Creek Baptist Church. Please do the invocation, sir.
Let's pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of your mercy and grace this morning to ask for your very real presence in this place. We pray that we will, as men and women of God, lay aside all of our self-centered interests and with humble hearts look to the greater good of those who have chosen us to represent you. Father, we once again ask that you bless our land with an abundance of rain, that we may, in humble gratitude, give you praise for your loving kindness and your tender mercies. We pray according to your word that you will help us to humble ourselves, to continue to pray, to turn from our ways so that you may hear us, forgive us, and heal our land. We ask that you guide us to love mercy, to do justice, and to walk humbly before you. We pray that all we do here will be pleasing in your sight, and we ask all of these in the blessed name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, now would you join me in our pledge of allegiance to our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a pledge to Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Before we get into the service awards, I'd like to remind everybody that if you want to speak on any of the agenda items, you must first fill out a public participation form, which Chief Steve Smith has with him. So if you'll go back there and see the chief, he's got a public participation form. You can fill it out, and he will give it to Ms. Lang and get you in line to address or make a comment on any of the agenda items. So the next item are service awards. Ms. Melissa Welburn.
Good morning. Ms. Grossman is not able to attend this morning, so our first service award goes to Brett Judith.
Okay.
You're the Massimo Commissioner. Brett's been rolled out for 5 years.
Oh, good. Is he here? There he is. Thank you very much. Okay.
Next service award is Alicia Miller.
Okay.
Alicia was first hired in my office, and then she left me for a little bit, and I was so happy to get her back. She's very valued, and I really enjoy working with her. She's a very dedicated, loyal employee, and she's been here 5 years. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't believe Mercedes is here this morning.
Okay, so that includes it?
That's,
All right.
yes, sir.
Mercedes Guerrero, 10 years, right? Okay. All right. So that brings us to the consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? If not, do I hear a proper motion?
Judge, I'll move to accept the consent agenda. Second.
All right, motion been made by Commissioner Cotton to accept the consent agenda, second by Commissioner Andrews. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have all the way down here. You don't have any other items, Mr. Good. Moving right along. All right, Mr. Clint Head.
Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners. Development has accepted 3 applications for replats, but I've been asked to table 2 of them. So today, staff is recommending setting the public hearing for just 1 replat, which would be the Blue Branch Ranch, Lot 63R in Precinct 1. And staff recommends setting the public hearing for September 13th, 2022.
Okay.
Judge, I'll make a motion. We set the public hearing for Blue Branch Ranch, Lot 63R for September 13th.
Second.
5 per second. Okay, so motion been made by Commissioner Andrews to set the public hearing for the Blue Branch Ranch Lot 63R for September the 13th, 2022, second by both Commissioner Cotton and Commissioner Wilson. Any, Eagle? I'm sorry. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Next, we have a preliminary plat of Pirate Village. The property is located at 2715 Acton Highway in Granbury. It proposes to create 72 single-family lots. This preliminary plat is located in the Road Corridor District in Precinct 3 and will be served by AMUD Water and Sewer. It proposes to construct 2,932.4 linear feet of urban standard concrete, 6-inch concrete streets. The largest residential lot is 0.2 of an acre and the smallest is 0.1 of an acre. There will be fire hydrants installed for fire protection. The concept plan for this preliminary plat was approved at the May 24th Commissioners Court. And at that time, a variance was approved to the Development Permit Regulations, Section 5.5A1A, Road Corridor Land Use Standards, Residential Density Limitations. All comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat of Pirate Village as presented.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the preliminary plat of Pirate Village.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion been made by Commissioner Wilson to approve the preliminary plat of Pirate Village, second by Commissioner Eagle. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Next, we have the final plat of Oakwater Ranch to discuss and consider. This property is located at 2963 Perry Orchard Road in Granbury. It proposes to create 29 single-family lots. This final plat is located in the Road Corridor District in Precinct 2 and will be served by well and on-site sewage facilities. There are no streets proposed with this final plat. The lots will be accessing existing county roads, Perry Orchard Road and Neary Road. All the lots are exactly 2 acres. There are ponds on the parent property accessible for fire protection. All comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval of the final plat of Oakwater Ranch as presented.
Questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
Judge, I'll move that we approve the final plat of the Oakwater Ranch.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, a motion been made by Commissioner Cotton to approve the final plat of the Oakwater Ranch, second by Commissioner Andrews. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And next, we have the variance that we had from the July 15th court that we continued for Sunset Ridge. The variance was to Section 2 Subdivision Regulations, Article 9, Section 914, requiring zone of influence study. And we discussed the possibility of I think y'all talked of a memorandum or a hold harmless indemnity agreement, or whether to approve the variance or not.
I have a
I don't know.
question about that. Mr. Mills, have you looked at the indemnity agreement?
Yes, sir. Our office did. I had an assistant look at it. I think we're on board with that, Judge.
Am I reading this correct, that it's the Moore Odom Wildlife Foundation?
No, it's a different one now.
Oh,
Oh, is it?
This one.
Is that the one you have? This one?
okay. That looks right to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's giving the indemnity?
Probably across, watershed they're asking for is going across the highway.
Okay. So have you and Mr. Mills discussed this indemnity?
Mr. Robert Carter and me, I sent that indemnity to them, and they looked at it, and if y'all decided that y'all wanted to conditionally approve it, if that was signed and recorded, or y'all could deny it, but staff recommends if y'all want to approve it, that it be conditional based on getting that signed and recorded.
Does anybody have any questions or comments to Mr. Head or anybody else regarding the variance request?
I'd like to add that the developer's already cut the streets, has already put base on the streets, and the construction plan's already approved, so whether the variance is approved or not, the water's already going there. They're already using the roads because they're already building houses in Parker County, so I got to figure out what we're going to do about that.
That's why I read that the water's actually coming from Parker County, is that correct? Into Hood County? That could create some,
We have no bond, we have nothing put up, and they built these streets, so
Who would sign this on behalf of the property owners?
the property owner would have to sign that indemnity agreement that he's accepting that water, would not sue, and I guess the developer would too, and then hit the,
But that's several people, right?
on this one, I think it's one person.
How much area is that? Because don't they normally have to do a study for, what, 500 acres downstream that's going to be affected by that? How much?
That's what they were saying, the zone of influence study would be 500 acres, but the initial impact of this one would be the adverse impact of going into this property.
Well, and I can understand him saying, hey, I'd like to have the additional water into a stock tank for, but it's affecting more than just him.
Yeah, it's property owners in plural in the agreement, and I don't even know who they are.
how can they get started and cut all these roads and do all the bases and do all this damage without even getting
forgot to take the
approval?
S out.
What's the remedy for that? What can we do to them if we say we don't give them the variance on this? What's going to happen? You saying that the water's already running, I mean, that would be a welcome sight, I guess, today, but
Well, they've already broke our rules, so.
that's what I mean. So you break our rules. What is, Mr. Mills, what is the punishment from breaking the rules here in Hood County for the development here? What can we do to set an example to make sure this doesn't happen again? Can we fine them? Tell them to put it all back the way it was? I mean, what do we do?
Well, you know the stuff better than I do, Clint, but I mean, there's possible fines. I guess we could go for an injunction. I mean, there's all kinds of remedies, right? I mean, if I'm correct. But I mean, you could deny this request and tie them up further.
Is any of the construction they've done in Hood County, or is it all in Parker?
It's all in Parker. And I'd like to talk to Parker and ask, how would y'all approve that plat without access?
Or did Parker not consider the drainage coming off of that property at all because it goes into another county? I mean, how does that surely they still have regulations on dealing with that.
I can't speak for Parker, but I know that they're not as,
I don't want to put you
they're
on
not as
that. Let's
thorough
not-
as us.
I'm sorry, let's not go there. I don't want to start questioning what Parker did up there. That's not, you know. But it's, what
just-
teeth do we have
But-
if it's not in our county?
I just can't believe that they approved a plat without having access, because it's accessing through Hood County.
Well, it seems like we should be able to do something. I don't want some damage to be happening, and it's the responsibility of Hood County to make it right. I mean, we can't have that. That could be serious property damage for some of these property owners, and like Commissioner Eagle pointed out, it's an association, a limited partnership, which you limited liability, and that can change. I mean, this may not be worth the paper it's written on when it gets down to it. So,
Well, and if that downstream pond, if they set that up for the detention, retention, whatever, to address that, then,
And I'd like to add that beyond that pond is the railroad spur.
what is the implication there?
I don't know. I don't know how much water is going to be going to that, or, you know, what's beyond that, so.
I thought the whole issue was just trying to indemnify Hood County if we give a variance to let this project go ahead, and then somewhere down the road, that water affects somebody, and they come back and says, well, Hood County, you approved it, and you're responsible. So I thought,
The variance is a play on word. The variance is not to do the study, but the study is going to allow them to have an increase.
Say that again?
When they're asking for the variance not to do the study to the zone of influence, it's basically allowing them to have an increase in runoff, because they're not going to have to do the study.
we have potential liability if we agree to that.
Because we're going to have a 26% increase leaving that property. I mean, their first variance that they asked for was to allow the increase, but then they come back and reworded it not to do the study.
With an indemnity agreement.
Well, the indemnity agreement was mentioned by the court, so I wrote the indemnity agreement as an option.
but then an indemnity agreement is only as good as the people giving you the indemnity agreement. It's a limited partnership of various property owners who may not even be around when that happens. And the way you were smiling about the railroad spur, that if something washed out the railroad or something down there, we're talking potential damages to other property owners. Right now, anybody would love to have runoff into a pond on the deal, but in a lot of wet years, you don't want that. When it comes around the spillway on a tank, that creates a lot of erosion and a lot of problems, and water is very destructive on the deal. I don't know if I want to go along with this indemnity here, because I don't, somebody didn't do their homework by doing their downstream deal about that to get our approval on this thing. I think I'm not very thrilled about this indemnity agreement. I don't think that satisfies me on my deal. I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions or comment?
I agree with you on this. It seems like we've got the procedures there in place to deal with this thing, and if we go around this, where do we stop on that?
Who's going to come up with the next time up there? They need to clear it with your department if it's coming into Hood County, to make sure that the citizens of Hood County do not have to pay for some developer's mistake.
From the pictures I have, the streets were built before I even had the construction plans.
Well, and I remember when this developer reached out months ago about this, and my understanding at that time that he was going to do the things that needed to be done, you know, he told me it was bleeding over into Hood County, but most of the development would be in Parker County. And that's the last time I'd heard of it until it was on the agenda last time. So I'm inclined to agree with the judge on this. This indemnity agreement doesn't make me feel any better.
And after conversation with our engineer, after discovering the streets were built, I asked our engineer if he was taking into consideration the runoff from the streets that were coming from the development in Parker County, and he was unaware of that. So we're not considering the runoff that's coming from the streets in Parker County coming through here, so that'll add more.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I'm going to have to make a motion that we deny the variance.
Second.
Okay, a motion been made by Commissioner Eagle to deny the variance, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor of denying the variance, say aye. Aye. All in favor of giving the variance, say aye. Motion fails, or the variance request is denied unanimously, 5-0. Okay, this brings us now to number E.
Yep.
Receive an update on construction plans for the Traditions.
All right. This item requires no action. Development just likes to read in the record that the construction plans for the Traditions have been approved because the regulations require it. They've been reviewed by staff and engineers. All comments have been addressed on the construction plans, and they've been approved. And they need to do it prior to presenting the next agenda item. So we'll go on to F. We have a developer's letter of agreement and a public hearing for the replat of the Traditions at Port Ridgely.
So at this time at 9:24, we're going to adjourn into a public hearing to discuss and consider the replat of the Traditions at Port Ridgely. Okay?
This property is located at 3700 Winding Way in Granbury. The property is in the Water Quality District in Precinct 3. It'll create 14 single-family lots that will be served by AMUD water and sewer. The concept plan for this replat was approved at the March 8, 2022 Commissioners Court, and there was one variance approved with the concept, allowing the street ending in a cul-de-sac to be longer than 600 feet. There will be fire hydrants and lake access for fire protection. There will be 1,409.3 linear feet of 6-inch concrete streets with one cul-de-sac constructed with this replat. This replat is a subdividing of a Track A of Port Ridgely, and as required by statute, letters were sent out to every property owner in Port Ridgely subdivision. Out of 238 letters that were mailed out, development received responding letters from 5 property owners. 1 was for, 4 were against, and 3 phone calls that were indifferent. A few emails with questions, mainly concerned about losing use of a private boat ramp that they had been using on the property for years. I don't know, do y'all have any speakers?
Okay, I don't have a speaker on this. Nobody's filled out a public.
All right, staff has reviewed this replat. All comments have been addressed. Staff recommends accepting the developer's letter of agreement and approval of the replat of the Traditions at Port Ridgely as presented.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. So now at 9:26, we are adjourned back into, or reconvene into Commissioners Court. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the replat of the Traditions at Port Ridgely.
Okay. Motion been made by Commissioner Wilson to approve the replat of the Traditions at Port Ridgely.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Andrews. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right.
Next, we got a public hearing for the replat of Pecan Plantation, Unit 8, Lot 887R. This replat is in Precinct 2.
Okay, at this time at 9:27, we're going to adjourn into a public hearing. Okay?
This replat's combining of a portion of Lot 886 with all of Lot 887 of Pecan Plantation, Unit 8, creating a 0.715 of an acre lot called 887R. This property is located in the Water Quality District in Precinct 2 and will be served by AMUD water and on-site sewage facilities. All comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval of the replat of Pecan Plantation, Unit 8, 887R as presented.
Okay.
I'll assume they've dealt with the HOA on this one and got the approval of the HOA.
Yeah, we always have a letter from the HOA before we accept any replats.
Okay, good.
Any other questions or comment? Okay, if not, we're going to, at 9:28, we'll convene back into Commissioners Court. What recommendation do you have, Mr. Head?
Staff recommends approval of the replat as presented.
Judge, I'll make a motion to approve the replat of Pecan Plantation, Unit 8, Lot 887R.
Second.
A motion been made by Commissioner Cotton to approve the replat of Pecan Plantation, Unit 8, Lot 887R, second by Commissioner Wilson. And Andrews. And Andrews. Okay, a tie. So, any further discussion or comment? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay,
Next, we have a public hearing for the replat of Deer Valley Estates, tracks 15R1 and 15R2.
okay, at this time at 9:29, we will adjourn into a public hearing. Please continue, Mr. Head.
This replat is located in the Road Corridor District in Precinct 1 and will be served by well and on-site sewage facilities. This replat is subdividing a tract 15, creating a 9.639 acres tract called Lot 15, or Tract 15R1, and a 2.441 acres tract called Tract 15R2. As required by statute, letters were sent out to every property owner in Deer Valley Estates. Out of 56 letters, development received responding letters from one property owner that was for. There was one phone call against and two phone calls that were indifferent. All comments have been addressed. Staff recommends approval of the replat of Deer Valley Estates, tracks 15R1 and tracks 15R2 as presented.
Any questions or comment from anyone? If not, we're going to convene back into Commissioners Court here at 9:30. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, Judge, I'll make a, excuse me, a motion to approve the replat of Deer Valley Estates, tracks 15R1 and 15R2.
Motion been made by Commissioner Andrews to approve the replat of Deer Valley Estates, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any further question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Head. Financial. Ms. Becky Kidd.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. For this court, you have expenditures in the amount of $457,586.55. The auditor's office has reviewed all these invoices and recommends payment. You've also been given a spreadsheet regarding payments over $10,000. Are there any questions regarding this information?
Any questions or comments? If not, do I hear a proper motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the paying of the bills of $457,586.55.
Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Wilson to approve the payment of the bills from July 8, 2022 to July 19, 2022, second by Commissioner Eagle. Any further comment or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. What else do you have, Ms. Kidd?
The monthly reports. You've all received information regarding the monthly reports that our office has reviewed. We are missing one. I will get with Ms. Cooper and discuss what's going on there. But other than that, they've been reviewed, and we ask that you accept them.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Do you have any idea when the elections will turn in their report? Has there been any conversation?
No, sir.
I thought I saw her here, but she's not. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to accept the reports as presented.
Second.
A motion been made by Commissioner Cotton to approve the financial reports, second by Commissioner Eagle. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kidd. Okay, the first item on miscellaneous is item number 1. We're going to go into executive session but what we're going to do is to go ahead and go through all the miscellaneous and take item number 1 at the end. So the second item is to consider and take appropriate action to authorize the county judge to sign the interlocal cooperation contract between Hood County Sheriff's Office and Pecan Valley MR region for providing transportation services for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis event. Chief Smith.
Judge, Commissioners, this is the yearly contract that we sign, and it's simply, they just reimburse us for the transportation of the mental health patients that we take for Pecan Valley.
That's right. And that's the same thing we've been doing for years, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further comment or questions? Okay, do I hear a proper motion?
I'll make the motion to authorize the county judge to sign the interlocal cooperative contract between Hood County Sheriff's Office and Pecan Valley.
It's been made by Commissioner Cotton.
Second.
To authorize the county judge to sign the interlocal cooperation contract between Hood County Sheriff's Office and Pecan Valley, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Chief. Okay. Item number 3 has been pulled from the agenda. So that brings us to item 4, is to discuss and take appropriate action to reconsider the office management system for Hood County Justice of the Peace Courts to allow the JP courts the option to remain with the current management system icon by net data rather than migrate to an entirely different office management system that is proving to be impractical for the majority of the JP courts in Hood County. We've got speaker here, Judge Gillum.
Morning, Judge, Commissioner.
I've got the summer cold. Air conditioning to heat, air conditioning to heat. So there's an item I wanted to include in the information packet, but court delayed me. What these numbers are, just according to the evaluation, I just made them large for those of us that are visually impaired. Me to discuss this. So thank you for allowing me this time this morning.
Test. Here I am. Okay. Try not to hit it. Gentlemen, I'm just, I have some questions because 4 elected officials are asking to stay with their current system, and it doesn't seem that we're being listened to. And so I'm asking why this court is making it difficult for us to do our job, and why I'm fighting so hard for this office and what we want is because I've read the local government code that tells me what my duties are, and I take my responsibilities and duties seriously, and that's why I'm here to ask for you to allow us to stay with our current system. So, and we keep talking about the evaluation, but in the evaluation it stated the consensus of the county offices were not happy with net data, with the exception of the JPs and the county clerk. And so now what I see being what's happening is we're just switching this analogy around. So we're going to allow the other offices to get what they want, but take away what we want and make us use a system that I don't think is efficient for our JP offices. And in the evaluation, it was stated ICON's Net Data JP management software program is customized for the JP offices. And so we just want to keep what we have. So I'm asking the Commissioners Court to allow the Justice of the Peace Courts to stay with our current court management system from ICON and Net Data. And one of the reasons I'm here is because this system, the software, works for us. My office averages $30,000 a month revenue to the county. That's pretty sound. It's $360,000 a year. I think our software that we're using now is very efficient and very productive for us. And what I've seen with Tyler's Odyssey program, it's for all the other courts, and they throw the JP court in there too. So it doesn't specifically do what we can do with the net data program. Several of you stood in my office and told myself and my clerks, when you were evaluating all this, that you wanted me to keep the system that works for me, that you were not qualified to make me use another system because you didn't know my office, and you wanted me to keep what I wanted. That's one of the reasons I'm fighting. You gave me that information, and studying the government code has led me to believe I'm supposed to protect my system. And the software I have now does exactly that. It's been stated several other counties around us use Tyler. Well, just because they use it doesn't mean they like it. I've spoken with people in Johnson, Parker, Erath counties, and they use it, but they don't like it. Matter of fact, the Johnson County judge gave me the analogy of turning the whole thing around, where the other courts didn't like net data, but they did, and then it just got turned around on them. And so now they're having to use a program they don't like. They get through with it, but it doesn't do what the ICON program did. So we do a good job with what we have. And in the government code tells me I'm the management and preservation. I'm the person responsible for the management and preservation of my records. I am the records management officer, and it says each elected officer is the records management officer for the records of their office. And my duties are to develop policies and procedures for the administration of an effective and continuing records management program, administer the records management program so to reduce the cost and improve the efficiency of the record keeping. We have that now. We are very efficient with the system we have now. And it tells me I'm to identify and make adequate steps to preserve records that are of permanent value, to identify and take adequate steps to protect the essential records of my office. That means my data that's being converted over to Tyler has been susceptible to errors. And in that, I've told you about the lawsuits against Tyler all over the United States, several of them in Texas, where the records, for instance, the warrants that were paid and taken care of when they were transferred in the data conversion were now active warrants. And warrants that were regular warrants were converted to KPS Pro fines, which means innocent people go to jail. That's happened. So as conservator of my records, I'm concerned about that, because if one innocent person goes to jail, I'm in trouble as the conservator of those records. And if I'm in trouble, Hood County's in trouble. I don't have that with my current system. I don't have to worry about the conversion of these thousands of records into the new system. The duties of the Commissioner's Court, you know that, but the point I bring out is to promote and support the efficient and economical management of records of all elected officials in the county, so that I adhere to those rules that I'm supposed to under the local government code. I'm just asking for your assistance. Last month, at the monthly governance meeting, Tyler stated there were several issues, and they shut down the project. It's been put on hold because of these issues. The issues were, one of them, none of the courts, none of the offices, with the exception of JP3, have completed their assignments. Well, there's issues with that. We're all having issues with getting the program installed and up to date for Tyler to move forward, but yet it's being put on hold, which is delaying the project. Some of you said I'm being difficult and not cooperative, but it's quite the opposite. I'm really studying this. Everything you've presented me as an obstacle, I've looked in, and I've come up with answers that are very reasonable in my mind, but everyone's having issues with this, and we don't have these issues now with our current data system. So the county software evaluation, we keep referring to this. In there are 9 instances where it says, with the exception of the JP courts, except ICON, except net data for the JP courts and the county clerk, and SmartBench, which is software to help ICON run better for the judge's clerk. In there it says all the offices except JP have an older version of the software. That's on page 2. Net data products used by the JP offices are a newer web-based product called ICON, page 2. SmartBench improves the effectiveness and functionality of the net data project, page 2. With the exception of the county clerk and JP offices, there is a general dissatisfaction with net data, except the JP offices. The lack of audit on page 3. With the exception of the JP software, there is a lack of audit trail. On page 3, the theme heard in all but the JP and county clerk's office, there is a lack of innovation and investment. On page 4, the risk facing Hood County, it lists the risk, but it says excluding ICON and SmartBench. That's on page 4. On page 4, capabilities and maturity model. Immature company with older technology except for the 2 models, ICON and SmartBench. Over and over it states ICON is a customized program just for the JPs. That's the net data pinnacle, is their JP program. It is customized for us. There's not another program that works better than this. Switching over to Tyler for us is not going to improve my office one bit. It takes a long time to get this program up and running, and there's difficulties with it. There's a lot of programs we have to go through and choose that don't even apply to our court. That doesn't happen with ICON and net data. So option 2 stated to let everyone change except the Sheriff's Department and the JPs. That was an option given to you, and I thought it was an excellent compromise. We have one JP that wanted to go to Tyler, but she's leaving in December. She's not even going to get to use it. And so that office is going to a system, and that's awesome. If they want it, let them have it. That'd be really neat to see how it works for them and how it works for us, and then we can compare apples to apples down the road. Net data and GHS, our collections agency, are integrated. Later down the road, if we're forced to go to Tyler, we have to take on a new collections company. And they will not have the access to Tyler that GHS has with ICON. Our ICON and GHS collections is seamless. They're ahead of the curve, and they do most of the work for us. We're now going to have to do a lot of work with Purdue or Linebarger, whoever we decide to go with. That's another advantage to keeping the software that we have now. Commissioner Cotton, you said you're doing it for the cost, to save taxpayers money. So that page I gave you shows the numbers that I took off of the evaluation. And I don't know, I still haven't heard the cost that we signed with Tyler, but it was 1.3 million. Is that fair? But what's the cost over the 5 years of this project? It's $3,600,000. And that's for option 1 that you chose. Option 2 was $130,000 less to let the JPs stay with Icon. And that's the numbers presented. And you can see the numbers right here. Option 1, option 2. Option 2 is $131,150 less to let the JPs stay with Net Data. I've been in contact with Net Data and got them to send me new numbers for a contract. In that contract, it's just like Tyler, we're going to go to the cloud. What does that do to our IT? It takes all of our IT department, for the most part, completely out of the picture, frees them up to do other things. That's a savings that there's not a number to. We've been talking about hiring more people in IT to help with this, but how about we free them up from our software management system where they don't have to mess with it and they can do something else for the county. So the numbers, if there's any different numbers, I'd like to see them. The new Net Data contract, they'll do it for 5 years. It's $70,000 a year for the JPs. That's everything. And that's still less than option 1 that we're going with right now. So gentlemen, we live in a constitutional republic, not a democracy. A pure democracy means you can take my bicycle away, right? If y'all vote take my bicycle away, you're going to take it. But in a constitutional republic, my bicycle's protected because it's what I want, it's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for your support to help me do my job. And your JPs in this county do a great job with what we have now. So please just let me stay. 2 other JPs want to stay with this as well. And we can do it, but I'm asking you to work with me and give your support to help me stay with the current software system. Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to stand up here and speak my mind.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next speaker is Ashley Weatherford.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Judge Gwynn is gone this week, so I'm filling in. I was going to try to call, but I don't have service. So I was asked to write a letter last week about how the process has been with Tyler. Judge, I think you might have it. The process with Tyler has been very lengthy. We've gone through multiple different sprints and had lots of different projects that we're supposed to be working on. Through the whole time, I've probably spent about an hour a day trying to figure out this program. And I really haven't had any issues. Any issues that I did have, Tyler was available to answer any of my questions. The phrase keeps being said that we're building the program. We're not really building it. It's already built. We're just kind of putting things where we want them. Like some specifics that we've done is for my office, I've had them put flags on cases for specific identifiers, or like how I wanted things worded differently, or they're doing all of the mapping and coding. We aren't doing any of that. One benefit, or a couple benefits to this, it is integrated with e-file. It will make our entire e-file process so much easier. It will make our civil cases go a lot smoother, less paperwork for the offices, and it'll make it a lot cleaner and more understanding. Another benefit is it is integrated with the constables, so we will be able to just send things to them. They get things easier, less paperwork. They can write notes on when they attempted services. We'll see that on our side as well. Also, the warrants that Judge Gillum was talking about, I have brought that up with Tyler, and I was informed that with our warrants, we have to get our sheriff's office to verify all of our warrants. Make sure that they are active, and what's not active, we need to get it taken off and clean it up on our side. I have already done that with Rania. I've gotten she's verified that they have the physical copies. We've already verified all of that, and everything's good to go. I do think that this is a smart move. It is a lot more high-tech and could benefit us in the long run. I definitely don't want to be the only JP office on Tyler, so if we do decide not to, I would prefer that the JP3 stay on Icon as well. But if we can all go to Tyler, I do think that is recommended. I have spoken with Stephen Barnett, also the judge that will be taking office in January after Judge Gwynn leaves, and he has agreed it's kind of whatever our office prefers, and we prefer to stay with Tyler.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right. The next speaker is Randy Ellis. Good morning.
Good morning. I'll start by saying I prefer Tyler, but I prefer the fluidity of government over all of it. So I would ask that we don't pick and choose what we're going to use, that everybody uses the same thing. And I feel the same as her. If we're not going to all switch to Tyler, then let's stay with net data. If I have a lady come to my office with questions about a civil case or some papers, and I'm not in the same system as another office, I can't see it. Now I got to send them across the county to go figure out what they're doing. So I would just prefer for us all to stay on the same because, you know, as he mentioned a while ago, I have a JP that prefers Tyler. And based on what y'all decide, when the next JP comes in, they could switch. And now I got to relearn that one. And then when the next JP comes in, they're going to be able to switch. And now my court has to relearn the other one because we do talk to each other through these systems. So I would just ask that whatever you choose, whether it's net data or Tyler, we all stay to where we can communicate and it's just more fluid. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Mills, would you come up here? I know that Judge Gillum went into some of the legalities about the privilege or his rights to get into the records and use whatever computer system that he wants. But I ask you to look at the law, and the law is quite clear on this. Would you please tell the court on the record here what you discovered about that?
Okay, well, I think your decision today is more of a policy decision than a legal decision. There's some AG opinions in case law where if you're completely neutering somebody's ability to do their job, and I sent a case to Dub the other day where a county literally gave a constable a salary of $0, and he said, look, I can't be a constable at a salary of $0 a year. This is ridiculous. And the court agreed with him that you have to be able to have the tools to do your job, right? So, I mean, if the county said, look, sorry, we're just not going to give you software, period, he would have a very good argument that he doesn't have the tools to do his job. I mean, to me, this sounds like more of a preference thing. I mean, arguably, you're choosing a worse software for his office. I mean, that's what he and two of the other JPs are saying. I don't think it rises to the level of you're not allowing him to be a JP or work as JP. So I don't think it's really a legal question. And in my study of the case law and the AG opinions, the only one who's kind of special in their ability to pick software is the auditor, actually, because of the independence that office is supposed to be granted. So, I mean, I think the commissioners do have the ability to pick software if it's workable, and obviously one of the JPs says that it is, so even if it's not as good of a product or it's a pain in the rear for three of the JPs. So, does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you. Anybody questions? Any questions or comments? Anybody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion. Let me see how to word this. I'll move that, that the JPs who choose to stay with net data, based on what I've heard today and based on the nominal difference in money, be allowed to stay on the net data. And if the other third JP, that's JP number 3, chooses to stay or continue the trek with Tyler, that's fine. So let me back this up. So my motion is to allow the status quo with net data to stay with the JPs.
I hear a second to the motion.
Well, and I think that county clerk's office wanted to stay with net data also.
And I'll add the county clerk to that, too.
You know, I've spent a lot of time talking to the clerks in these offices, not so much with Ashley back there. Sorry, I'm not excluding you. It's just, you know, I know you guys were in favor of that, and this is definitely a burdensome, cumbersome process, and you know, the more I talk to them, the less I feel that that we're really getting the benefit out of this thing that we're looking to get by forcing them to switch and just stay with the program. I'll second the motion.
Okay. All right, a motion has been made by Commissioner Eagle to allow the JPs, or 3 of the JPs, to stay on net data, if they so choose to. Second by Commissioner Andrews. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Aye. Motion fails by 3-2. Okay, that brings us to the next item. Item number 5, consider and take appropriate action to approve and sign a proposal for an assessment of the LEC not to exceed $23,000 and the option below grade plumbing assessment not to exceed $10,000. Mr. Glenn Tillman.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. As you know, there's many questions about the condition and continued viability of the LEC. So the Sheriff's Office has requested a complete assessment of the above-ground components, as well as the underground plumbing, which is of great concern. And this assessment should answer those questions.
We had a workshop on that, didn't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's where these questions were brought up.
And so it's a proposal for the assessment, which is the jail. Really.
Yes, the jail.
Yeah, it is the jail. The LEC is the jail. Not to exceed $23,000, and the option below grade on the plumbing not to exceed $10,000, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Judge, as we talked about in the workshop, we really need to know what's the condition of our existing jail. That will help us. I'm not saying it's going to make the decision, but it's going to help us in making a decision of how we go forward with the LEC, whether we keep it, repair it, not repair it. So I think we need to have these answers. So I think it's money well spent to get those answers.
I think that was the consent in the workshop as well. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve and sign the proposal for the assessment of the LEC not to exceed $23,000 and the optional below-grade plumbing assessment not to exceed $10,000 to identify, the condition of what we're dealing with that system in the jail.
Okay, motion been made by Commissioner Wilson to approve the proposal for the assessment of the LEC not to exceed $23,000 and the below-grade plumbing assessment not to exceed $10,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second been made by Commissioner Eagle. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'm opposed.
You oppose?
I'd rather, on this plumbing, I think we know we've got issues there with steel or cast iron pipes. I think we just need to go ahead and bring a contractor in and address the issues. I don't know as though we need a third-party analysis on it. I think we ought to just get in there and fix that. So
I would be against this $10,000 on the below-grade plumbing.
We've already voted on the deal. Motion carries 4-1 with Judge Andrews voting against the motion. Okay, the next item, receive presentation by AGCM of the initial fire station assessments. No action to be taken. Yes, sir. Who do you got?
Good morning. We have Sean Spires, who's a project manager for AGCM, with us today to speak about this.
Okay. Mr. Spires, how are you?
Good morning, Your Honor, fellow commissioners. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So, as you guys know, you tasked AGCM with providing a facility assessment for all of the fire stations here in Hood County. So what we have done is myself and James Beers with ICON, we physically went to every station, talked to the chiefs, talked to a lot of the personnel there, identified a lot of the wants and needs from them. And one of the things that we did want to make sure that we brought in ICON, a design firm, who has in-house structural engineering, mechanical, civil, architectural. So we have a pretty good team behind us giving this assessment. So we also want to commend you, the court, for this. It's a very fiduciary responsibility you did for your constituents here, and I want to commend you guys on spending the time and the effort to do this as well. So at this time, I will turn it over to James Beers with ICON. They are the actual firm that did the facility assessment for us, and I will turn it over to James at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Judge, Commissioners, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. Good seeing you all again. Is there a clicker that I can click, or?
This isn't in a PowerPoint.
But I mean, if you can just go slides and I'll try to go high level.
As long as you say next, I'll just hit the button.
That's perfect. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, that was fine.
So thank you, Sean and Ryan. And you know, one of the things I think I want to point out is today is a working session to kind of bring to your attention the efforts that were made both internally and externally. Mr. Andrews, we were together on the sites. We've been together a number of times over at the EOC. One of the objective aspects of this was to look at the very high level components. So if you look inside your book, I won't touch on every point, but the intent of this is to give you the information necessary to understand what your facilities look like, how they act for themselves, and how it costs the whole entire district as far as throughout the entire county. You can bring those levels of service up to a level and what those costs may be. We looked at the market factors. If we could go to the second page, if you don't mind, I apologize, so that everyone can see. There you go. So the purpose is, kind of here, and you can read that. I won't read word by word. So we went through 7 facilities in volume 1. So ultimately, we're going to get to a point where you're going to have a tab booklet. Today is more of just a high level kind of what are those things that we saw. And I'll touch on each one of the stations to some extent. And if you want to follow along, you can kind of go through it. In the back in volume 2, you'll see there'll be a cost summary, and we can touch on that at the very end. One of the common things that we found, and one of the things I want to make sure we point out here today and for the audience as well, let me pull this up if you don't mind, was the observations we noticed were mostly the facilities were in decent shape as far as the structures go. As far as the life safety aspect and the accessibility issues that were discovered, that was pretty much common throughout all the facilities except De Cordova, which is one of the newer facilities within the county, and done quite nicely, and they're all put together very well. Now, as far as the rating of the systems, if you can go to the next page, please. Again, I'm sorry. So the criteria for evaluation. One of the things that we looked at, if you go to your page 1 of 8, which would be the first of the criteria for Hood County, for example, we looked at all of the aspects of what those pieces will be in conjunction with us determining from structural to what Sean mentioned, MEP, architectural, and I'm an architect, been doing this for 30 years, and kind of looked at what those experiences are within the building and what those current as-built components are within the facility. Each one of those items, if you go to the next page, was ranked, and it's a little small here, I apologize for the screen, but all the aspects of the buildings were looked at. Each component you see here was given a rating. At that rating, as far as the facility condition index, we come up with a number, and if you can go back 1 page, I apologize. There you go, if you can make that just a touch bigger. failing, poor, fair, good, and excellent. So all these numbers kind of hit in the lower tier of that facility, but not all aspects of every building is failing. Is that clear?
Yep.
Just to make sure we're on the same page. So with each facility, without touching into all of them, at your convenience, there's also a draft section. You'll see it provide comments that over the next month, what our objective is to get feedback from this draft report. This is kind of a work in progress. There's no ego, no right or wrong, but it's our objective observation through the collective efforts of AGCM and ourselves to come up with what those recommendations will be. One of the charges of this effort was, what would the cost be? So if we can scroll down to the last page of this item, keep going, 2 more, please. Thank you. Right here. So within each assessment, without touching on each piece, there's a narrative that goes along with this that kind of puts and if you go to the very bottom page, there we go. The rating, for example, for North Hood County, station number 20, was a 1.54. And that's in that range where it's poor to failing. It's not subjective, it's just an empirical data of what happened with how the data sorted out. And those were the items on the previous page. So I welcome you all to look at the criteria of the evaluation and the objective stance. One of the charges was, what will it cost to renovate the facility in conjunction with bringing in some of the components, such as living, separation, airlocks, life safety concerns, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And then on this particular station, because the site has constraints, what would be the replacement cost to provide that same like kind of amenity for a brand new station? If you were to just wipe the site clean and add the station back. Now again, the nuances, and there's some aspects of sites have constraints as far as boundaries and setbacks. So sometimes we can't go left or right or back or forward. Parking is an issue. We have to look at going up. So those factors were considered in part, but it's not the quote-unquote ideal prototypical station it's working with. So that's what the replacement budget on some of these will indicate, replacing in kind. Are there any questions on that?
Is this for all facilities or one single one?
So that's a great question. So this, if you look at the report, we did 7 stations, 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, 80, 90. Some were excluded from the list because it was predetermined through the commissioners and Glenn and the team was these facilities are likely just going to be replacement candidates, and some of them we're looking for new sites. So this report, each section is broken down to each physical report station at its budget, and then it's summarized and collected at the back end. Does that answer your question? Are we clear on that? Perfect. Each bottom has some budget constraints. Really important to note. This is a very wild market, and I think if Sean and Ryan want to jump in here, if they want to say anything, or if I'm missing something, please. But it's a very interesting market as it relates to supply chain and costs. So we put some factors in, which you'll see momentarily. And right now, we're opening bids and kind of looking at the bracketing aspect of what the costs are. Renovation costs are bracketed between $300 to $400 a foot, and new construction can range anywhere from $500 to $900 a foot right now in this market. And we've had bids open just recently that have reflected that. There's other factors: proximity to the market, location of the projects, the dispersion of the projects within a certain area. So those are strategies that we can tackle down the road. Does that make sense? So if we go through this, and I'll just touch on a couple more items here. As far as life safety, we do a lot of fire station work. And I think through the charges of looking at this, and AGCM as well, is we really care about the firefighters and firemen and women of the station who support the community. In a volunteer setting, we understand that, but life safety is one of the top levels of concern that we have. Most of these stations do not have that provision in them, and that's just staying for a fact. But there are solutions within each station that could provide that at a cost. And that's what you see here with the renovation budgets, just to be clear. Any questions on that? If we can go forward to, we'll go to the next station. So in those reports, we both looked at it from a drone standpoint, kind of looking at the roofs, looking at the conditions, and you can see here, for example, and I won't touch on all of them, but here is kind of a site that's constrained, and looking at Hood County, what you can't see here is really the topography. And some of the aspects of dealing with the chiefs are, what can we do or what do we want? So the future considerations were included in the budgets, which are broken down shortly, to how we can expand, maybe adding a bay. How do we put living in? How do we consolidate the effort? And in North Hood County, you have kind of a situation where you have building, living, building, but it's all kind of collected. Everything just kind of comes together. So the term I'm going to introduce to everybody to educate them briefly is hot to cold zones. The hot zones is when you go out, and you guys, I commend you all right now dealing with what you're dealing with out there. We pray for everyone out there serving and fighting the brush fires in the area. We really hope that that comes to resolution here soon on behalf of all of us. But the hot zone is when you come back with contaminants, carcinogens. You don't want to bring that into where someone may be sleeping or eating and those types of things. That's something that we've seen across the entire county, and those are things that we want to address post this evaluation. Again, those factors for cost include what we believe will solve that problem that you currently have today. Is that clear? Good? Okay. Next slide, please. Not touching on everyone, we'll just fast forward here a little bit. So these are some of the specifics. Stop here for a second, please, if you don't mind. Go back one, there we go. So we looked at the way the facilities are being used. Most of the facilities need updated kitchens. You can see there's a refrigerator on one side, there's a sink on the other, there's no hood on some of these appliances. Again, we recognized what was there, we just observed what we saw, and we have solutions that can solve for these types of situations as we move forward. Continue, please. Again, washers and dryers out in the open. And to the point about hot and cold zones, and I won't touch on every one of these slides, but every one of them will be similar. Bunker gear stored in the apparatus bay after it's clean further receives the contaminants. So we really want to make sure we explain that and we provide those solutions for you. And we're just looking at what's there. And it was very nice. Mr. Andrews was with us on site for one day, I think, of our trip, and pointed out, it was very helpful with showing us, you know, some of the things that he had concerns with and brought it to our attention. So please continue. Again, just going through these slides. Storage, again, if you have a storage room that's properly organized, you're going to store it no matter what you can, just like this. So that's more operational than anything, but it's obvious that floor space is taken up and you're paying money for that space. We can work on those solutions going forward too. Please continue. Again, this is Crescent. So when we look at the different facilities, some do have living. One station, specifically this one, has 6 men and 2 bunks in one room that's 130 square feet. And they sleep stacked like sardines in a can. The safety aspect is a concern. I get it's volunteer and all that, but we observe that, so living is very important for the station. In this particular instance, I want to draw attention to it. The facility itself, and if we can go to the next slide, please. Please go forward. There you go, perfect. The facility to your left of the picture on the very top, the front picture is off to your left, and kind of we can show the whole building. It's a very fine apparatus bay. There are daylight opportunities to clean up and fix, and that side behind the 30 is a storage room, and there's a day room, and there's a bathroom, but accessibility. None of the bathrooms are accessible. So able-bodied people, TDLR is going to be an issue, which is Texas disability, so we have to make sure we look at the accessibility of these spaces. However, in this instance, what you'll see later on is that this facility, this apparatus bay could be repaired, but this chief wants to build a brand-new station. So this is the one exception to the rule, is that this is kind of that prototypical station that we've been provided that can, in kind, fit on this site. And I'll show you that here in a moment. But more importantly, here is the bunk and living quarters. So there's one bottom left, bottom right, and all the heads are facing the open area. So it's very tough living quarters. They have one air conditioner unit within the space. Again, you guys are doing the best you can with what you got, and these guys are doing a great job, and women are doing a great job out in the field. So, but again, looking at accessibility concerns, handrails, and just things that you would want to have for the safety and well-being, over time, sometimes that wasn't considered when it was first done. And those are things we observed. I'll pause for a moment. Am I covering things okay? I know I'm going high level. If you want to keep going, please. Perfect, right here. One of the things that's important is ice is used for both drinking, for storage and coolers, and a lot of these ice machines are out in that space. So when a truck starts up, it emits a lot of diesel carcinogens right away. This particular one is right in the travel path of receiving it. So those are things we'd want to address as we go forward. Bunker gear stored on the upper level and mezzanines. It's a common theme. Again, if you can store it somewhere, you'll put it there. That's so be it and fine, but it may not always be ready to be put into use safely. Please continue. We can kind of fast forward. The Cordova, I'm just going to touch high level. It's the newest station. It's the only station within the county that is fully sprinklered. It's got a helipad. I mean, again, but here again, it's a brand new station, but the bunker gear is stored out in open space. Please continue on the slides. I'll kind of move along here. Propane gas, continue please. This is a picture below and above. Day room, first floor, and then second floor living with Murphy beds. Kind of off to the right, you'll see a cabinet. By code, you can have 4 people sleeping in an area on a second floor, but even the bathroom needs to be accessible if you don't have a vertical lift, an elevator. So those are things that you have to work to constrain, so that kind of set the table for all the stations, is if we go up, we'll go to 4 bunks upstairs, and we'll work on understanding what those accessibilities are, and those were considered again when you see the cost. Extractors out into the open bay. Restrooms with door swings and door pulls. Some of those times, they didn't care about it back 20 years ago, or 2006 or 2012, they do now, and we do now. Here's a shot of a very clean apparatus bay, stair, understanding that that line there is your soda machine. You have an engine right next to it, that thing starts up. You're out there, those doors open, it goes right into the administrators and the office folks. So those are things we think about, like airlocks, and how do we separate those 2 spaces, both physically and mechanically. Air ventilation systems, air vac systems, and those are things we considered as well too. Please continue. We can kind of jump forward here so I can not bore everybody to death. This is LIPAN, really quick to touch on that. And Mr. Andrews was out there with Sean and myself. And the site's kind of constrained. So what you'll see in the top slide is the main station and the storage facility. During our visit, it was determined that the site and the constraints is that we were not even going to evaluate the upper building on the piece of triangle. And we determined that it's probably a drop and a reconditioned space or possibly parking, and that is evidence within the narrative of this document. The main station below has some opportunity. To the right, you'll see an engine that's kind of parked in there. So we've included areas that we think we can expand within the budget and what that cost associated with that would be, and how do we get living? We probably have to go up on this station if this site is there. And if you drop and swap it, we still have a parking issue. As you can see, there were 4 vehicles on site that day, but if you're in a full command position, you probably have a need for 20 parking spaces, which may have to go across the street, which also presents other safety factors. So again, objectively, I know I'm here to present kind of our piece, but this is the things we considered. For the most part, the structures are good. I mean, those are things that we consider. Please move on. Again, these are images from the front, and there's the facility across the street. Again, just continue, please. Kitchens, accessibility, countertop heights. This is just kind of evidence across everything. Everything seems to be set at the old standard. Those are things that cost money to fix, and we've evidenced that in our costs. Please continue. Again, showers without the ability to roll in. Most stations have a curb. Those have to be roll-in so that if someone was not able-bodied, they could get in and use that facility as well too. And to the left, there's a toilet to the left, and storage again. Wherever you can store something, you're going to store it, and that's the situation here. Please continue. Back to the open gear. There's that fire truck I mentioned. You can click ahead, please. Continue. We'll go to Hilltop right now. Again, looking at stations that have the ability to have a station, this is the other aspect. In this particular cost evaluation, when you look at the back of this, there's a little notch at the very top that we could add on to, but again, you have diesel service, you have water and wells, so we're looking at all the considerations is how can we add on to this facility to give you what you need to make it work. It can be done, but you have to go up or you have to go out, and this site does have those abilities to do it. This site also has the ability to wipe the site clean and put down a prototypical station that we've been discussing as well too. So in the cost analysis, the summary in a moment, which we'll get to in a moment, you'll see how that breaks down. I can further explain that. Common theme, just so you all can get a read of what we see and observe. And please, if I'm boring you, I'll be done here in a moment, I promise. I think I have my last couple points to make. If you can continue, please. Again, function and order. There's 2 offices, 2 commands in that office. There's 2 officers for that room. It functions and works. It's what they know, and they do their job, and they serve the public well. But could they do it better? Maybe. But those are things we looked at, and we factored that into our consideration. Please continue. This facility, I got to tell you, was the coolest facility out there, temperature-wise. That was supposed to be a joke, but it was a fantastic mechanical system. We were cool out there. It's a very hot day, and we appreciated the water and everything else. But this is an interesting opportunity, is that some of the bays are not being utilized as pull-through because there's fitness equipment, there's aquatic service vehicles, there's just general storage. So those are strategies that we can deploy to help you down the road to say operationally, what can we do to establish and help and implement a plan that works to better serve the function of the money you're going to spend to make these facilities current. Please continue. Again, bunker gear out in space, common theme. Continue, please. Again, that same, just to reiterate, that same criteria and support, like what are we looking at? It's consistent all the way through. And we had a really big list. We kind of honed that down through the work of AGCM and ourselves and our internal engineers is, what are the services? Things like electrical, what do we have to update? So those were all factored in. We did not physically look at measuring or serial numbers so that this is not about the physical capabilities of the space, but we have a general idea of what the square footages are, and we have some great information both from a site planning standpoint and information from Glenn and his team that we included in part that we can certainly dive into through further discussions. Please continue. This is Pecan Grove. There you go. Again, that's a pool table, that's a desk, that's a cover top, that's the kitchen, that's a battery charging station. It's everything in one room. And it's directly adjacent to the apparatus bay. Exterior-wise, in some of these facilities, some of them pre-engineered. This particular building has masonry based on a requirement. It is a veneer. There are some issues with rakes and metals and general maintenance upkeep, and we factored that into this particular cost estimate. Please continue. Again, looking at electric versus gas, kind of looking at how things are stored. It just is what it is. This is kind of how we are, and this is how we operate, and they function, and they serve the public. Please continue. Issues such as environmental concerns, again, this isn't addressed everywhere, but that is the bathroom, and I'm a big guy, and that hallway is 3 feet and the door is smaller, and you have to go to a shower and a toilet and a sink all within that compartment area. So things are tight, and we'd have to update those things. Some stations may not be able to be replaced in the exact place. We may look at flipping it. This particular budget, when you see it, we're looking at flipping the living north and adding in areas along the north side of the facility, but such as mold, water, mechanical systems that need to be maintained. Again, mezzanines that say inhabitable within the document you'll see is consistent throughout the county. Again, this says pull-through, but some are backup commands, some are engine front commands. They don't necessarily use them as a true pull-through bay, just because EMS is directly behind it. So those are things that they functionally use this as kind of a double-stacked apparatus bay condition. And although double-stacked, also a very tight factor. Please continue. You can go through Toller, please. So we'll go to volume 2. Actually, stay here for just a moment. Other constraints sites. This site's out west, and it's serving right now, I'm sure, one of the brush fires right now. But there's a railroad in the back. There's an easement. This facility has been expanded onto. There's opportunities here to go up with this facility. Again, what is the necessity? Again, bringing those budgets into constraints. This site would not allow for the new prototypical facility, but this could be expanded to probably serve to a very high level, in our opinion. Please continue. Again, tanks outside for both gas service and propane for servicing for fuel. Continue, please. This is the inside. It's one day room. I will give them, the way this was planned, that picture on the bottom is the extractor and the washer. That door goes into the bathroom. If you go through that door at the bottom, you come through the opening you see in the top picture. So again, that safety component, electrical, all those things, and bunker gear, as you see, it's a function and it's a fact of service right now. Continue, please. Again, looking at heights and urinals and locations and separation. It's not the most attractive picture, but it shows you how they're using the space they can to the best opportunity they have for them. Please continue. Again, ice maker out in the space, common theme, it is what it is, but we wanted to make sure you understood it. Bunker gear, the same factor I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Continue. So here's the part I want to pause for a moment so we can brace for what the costs are to understand. So what we've done and what you can do, and you'll see when you get the final book, we'll have a volume for cost, and then you'll have your volume 1, which will be the pieces. So I'm not going to go into the particular breakdown of the cost estimate for your time, and I don't want to make sure people aren't sleeping, Sean, back here. But if you open up the next slide, please. Can we, oh geez, can we rotate that guy? I'm sorry. You have it in your booklets, and I can kind of just show y'all if it's in here so the audience can see as well too. We can certainly talk off the booklet. Yep. On the far left column, what I want to bring to your attention, while he's pulling this up, thankfully, is you'll see some of the stations are listed. They were not evaluated. However, if you look to the right, you'll see the replacement cost total, and that means the prototypical station would be a candidate for that site, and that's what that column means. So staying with that first column, there we go. And the first column number is at the bottom of the summary of each particular narrative section for the reports, just to be clear, they coincide. And then we started looking at what those cost factors can be on an annual basis as discussed. And so the left column is if you were just to renovate and provide the base minimum requirement for all the stations, with excluding the other stations not looked at, you're looking at about $18 million in today's money. And further in the breakdown, which you can, I won't go into the details, we can just stay here at the end of the presentation. What would it be to do the same thing in 2 years from now? And that factor, based on market conditions and through working efforts with Sean and the team and our team, is we factored in about 20% per year inflation and cost and supply chain, coupled with proximity and location to contractors, GCs, things like that. So you'll see that for the renovation costs. So if you're to wait till 2028, that same 18 million you'll see how that kind of grows forward. We're talking 40, 120%. You're talking a rather large, so it's compounded. It's like interest when you're doing your investment accounts. So our recommendation is that the longer you wait to make a decision, the more money it will take for you to get the same like-kinded amenities across each station, should you choose to renovate. And if you follow over to the last comment, I'll pause for just a moment before I talk about the replacement cost. Is there any questions?
I think we're going to have some time to study and review, and then we'll have questions.
So I'll finish that with next steps, and Sean and I can kind of touch on that here momentarily. So let's just go to the replacement cost column. We looked at a prototypical station, and we applied what that cost per square foot is based on what the current numbers are. And it averaged out based on the plans that we had that were given to us, which thankfully you guys had a really good start to a design. That was about $7 million for the building and the site. So we plugged that number in conjunction with what the replacement cost would be if we were to place the stations in like-kinded amenity. So the column here where you see, for example, Station 20, to replace in a like-kinded current cost, that's now a $4 million station. So if you were to wipe the slate clean and build it, or you renovate, you're spending $2.26 million. So that's what I want to make sure we're clear on. So some of those numbers that are below do not have the prototypical station. So if you see 3.9 million, 5.3, 6, 7, those are replacing the square footage in kind to the amenities that we were adding within the cost estimate, just to be crystal clear. And that's your total cost on the right, which is factored in right now based on other things we could value or things we could take out, certainly. But objectively speaking, based on the information we have and the observations that we did, this is where we feel the objective costs related to the conditions, and then that's what we're looking at as far as moving forward, to start from here to inform you objectively so that you all can make a decision on how you want to move forward. And next steps. We came today to present this as a review because there's a lot here. There's no way this could be final today. The intent was to have this be a working session, just to be clear, and get your input. What is this? What is that? There may be questions. There is no question off limits or off base. We want all of it over the next month so we can work together to come up with that final document that we can bind here and you can use as your gospel truth to make decisions moving forward, both in the near term, midterm, and long term. And that long term may only be 4 or 5 or 7 years, but today's times that comes pretty quick. And then more importantly is present those findings back to Commissioners Court as their final findings with that input and comment back and feedback. With that said, Glenn, did I cover everything for us right now? Is there anything, Sean?
Yeah. So These numbers that you guys see and it's reflecting, these are lifetime numbers that we get every day. We do quite a few fire stations all across the state, so we take these numbers. We also have a very rigorous in-house estimating firm, or a team that does all of our estimating for AGCM. And so we've been seeing used to a 5 to 7% swing in bids lately, like in the past, 5% lower than 5% higher. So we've actually been, in the last 6-8 months, a year, we're getting 20% swings either way. The market is very volatile. We've all know what's going on with the supply chain issues and everything else. So take into consideration that these numbers today, if we started the project today, it takes about 1.5 to 2 years to get a project designed out of the ground. So you're already looking at 2024, 2025 numbers for projects, because that's what it's going to be by the time they actually come out. So, like I said, these are not hard locked-in numbers. These are what you guys asked us to do as far as our expertise and what we have to see in lifetime, day-to-day numbers. So I know it's big numbers, but these are what we're seeing nowadays. We don't know if it's going to go down. We don't know if it's going to go up. Right now, we only see the trend going up. So that's what we wanted to let you guys know. It's just we're seeing these huge variances right now in bids.
That's a good point. I think from a CIP standpoint, for you can understand what your capital improvement component would be, is how does that look and how can you allocate those funds coupled with what your revenue is and how do you support those facilities and grow. So those are things we're very competent with, and like Sean mentioned, through that rigorous understanding, I mean, 20% spread, that's big on $1 million. That's, you could be 1.2 to 800,000. But you get to 5 million, you're talking $1 million, 7-figure spreads that happen right now. And it just happened just in the past week. And we open bids up probably, I would say, collectively between us 2 or 3 times a month. Is that a fair number to say? And of facilities, I want to make sure we're clear. Facilities doesn't matter, but structures of similar kind. That makes sense. So pre-engineered metal building, these aren't all masonry buildings. I mean, we're looking at kind of a good, better, best approach to our effort, and we're looking at kind of the good to gooder in this effort of what we're doing with like-minded 25 to 50-year structures. So that's what we're seeing in the market. Ryan, is that consistent? So those numbers we keep looking at, and we're seeing that line do this.
We're seeing about a 1.5 to 1.8 increase per month. Inflation, whatever you want to call it, it's what we're seeing per month in costs right now. That's per month. So you can see we're 20% by the end of the year is going to be 20-30% more, less facility that we could have built at this time last year. So there's just things to take into consideration when looking at these. We don't know where the trend's going.
One of the things I'll add to that, which is a good point, Sean, is just so you all know, is that, for example, generators or mechanical equipment. Generators were 3 weeks ago, were 60 weeks out. We just bid a project, it's 46 weeks out. So it's doing wide swings in the market space. Even metal, steel, red iron, different buildings, some manufacturers aren't getting it. So if that affects your conditions, you don't want to start some of these projects and have the general conditions of your project tick and you're paying for. You want to start them when everything's ready. So the delivery method is going to be an important discussion that we're going to have, and we're very fine-tuned collectively on that. So how we can kind of navigate that course, that's the next level post this to really roll up our sleeves and engage that part of the process too. And select those materials for availability necessarily may not always be the cheap material, but it may save a month or 2 of the delivery side. So those are things that we have a really good optic in, is that fair to say, on that too. So just wanted to add that. So.
A lot of the other things too that I represent a couple of 3 cities over like in Dallas-Fort Worth area, Dallas area over there. One of the things that we're doing now is we're telling the cities and the courts and everything else, if you have a project you want to look at in the next 1.5 to 2 years, go ahead and look at getting it designed now. So whenever you do want to do the actual project, design's ready, waiting, you're not waiting that extra 8, 9, 10 months to a year of getting the design done. You've saved that time. You can hit the street running and save those additional costs moving forward with the inflation. So those are just things to take into consideration that we talk to other courts and city managers and city councils about. So.
And also too, Sean, we talk about packaging with the projects is if we can get one contractor or 2 to cover all the corners of the county, there's some economies to scale if they can move one of their crews when they're out here from one area to the other. So there are some savings factors that come into play too, if we can group these together.
And those are discussions way down the road.
Way down the road,
How we
yeah.
package things to make it better, more beneficial for you guys to save, it gets more interest generated from contractors and everybody else. So, any questions from you guys on our side, or?
I got one, if you mind.
Yes, sir.
Does this include any expansions of any of the facilities, wish list from them, how more bays, or is this renovating the existing facility and it looks like it, same footprint, just better equipment? What?
I would submit to you, if you would like to kind of see what that is. Can we go to the next page after this one, please, and I'll answer that question with the visual. Oh, sorry, we did that thing again. If you go to the next page, Mr. Cotton.
I can turn it.
At the very top of the page, you'll see the facility, and then down through the middle of it, you'll see expanded first floor area, added area. So we tried to figure out through the site and through the information is how much can we blow this thing, I mean, not blow it up, but how much can we increase the size within the confines of civil comment. So you'll see in there, you'll see first floor expansion, 600 feet, proposed second floor addition, where we cantilever over and those things. So those are factored in to get to that base threshold of common service. So yes, each one of them has a different top end, and it's all factored into the cost. So each cost is slightly different as you travel down the sheet. But this is your detailed estimate, as Sean pointed out before, was this, I would put the whole audience to sleep if you started digging in here, but there are contingencies in here. They're big right now. We don't have a full understanding, so please take that into account. But what you'll see, if you back up a slide, please. Go back a couple. There you go. So the column on the left, if you can go back one more to 7 pages, I'm sorry. I'll show you one thing here. Keep going. Stop. Go back one. Thank you. Those numbers on your summary sheet, the renovation budget and replacement budget, are the front column numbers or the replacement budget on the fourth to fifth column. So when you're looking across here, these are the breakdown estimates. When you're looking side by side, you can see how we got to this point.
And yes, Mr. Tillman, he did a great job as far as identifying the wants and the needs from the different stations. So thank you very much for that. So yes, we did take that into consideration, the wants, the needs, and expansions and/or just total replacements. So we did another thing too, is we across the board put in, like James saying, contingencies like FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, electronics, just to kind of make what we're tasked to do is look at standardizing all of the facilities across the county. So if one went from the element where everything is at, and it's just standardized across the county. So everybody has the same kind of type of facility.
It's a great question, though, Mr. Cotton. Thank you.
Any other questions? I know it's a lot to digest. We do look forward to hearing back from you. And like James was saying, transparency is, you guys are doing a great job as far as doing this and showing the community and the county that you are very interested in this, and especially with the situations going on with the fire. So thank you guys again. Like I said, we look forward to any comments or questions you guys have, and we'll get back and answer them.
Thank you all very much for having us, Mr. Tillman. We look forward to hearing back. And if you have any questions, please step in.
Great.
And please let me know if I'm correct. So the next step is basically to study this information and probably have a workshop for, to discuss that more and to bring back answers to questions that the court would have on this information.
Exactly right. Yeah, a working session over the next month. To your point, exactly right. Because this is the time where you guys are, pardon the pun, we're given information from a fire hose, and I tried to keep high level, but there's deeper stuff in here that you may uncover and want to unpack and kind of discuss. So that's the purpose of this, because it's, to Sean's point, we're all in this together. We're part of communities, we live in these communities, we want these things to happen, we have to be transparent, and that's how we operate as well. So, but we want your input, and if there's a question, there's nothing, as I think I said earlier, every question is fair game. The only bad question is the one unasked.
And how do y'all want to receive information or questions from the court?
In the packet on each facility, there is a blank section for drafts. So if they could fill that out and/or type it into an email, and we go back through one point where we can kind of come back.
We've been going through you.
Yes, that makes sense.
So.
Okay.
Is that fair?
So, yeah, so any questions, they can run through me, and I'll be glad to pass it on, so that when there is a workshop in the future, they can arrive with the answers to those questions that the court may have.
And then at that time, too, we can go through the labyrinth of information, from aerial footages to photographs, to further answer any questions that you may have. We have thousands of pictures and many, many videos to, of the facilities, but today wasn't the time to go through and dive that deep. But it is available for, and it's on the discs that I provided to Mr. Tillman.
Okay.
So you have a copy of those, all stations images, and the report.
Okay.
Digitally. So thank you very much for
All
that.
right. Thank you all.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was scary.
Sorry.
Big numbers. But we knew,
Okay.
gee.
All right, this brings us to our last item here. Discuss and take appropriate action to promote maintenance tech employee, annual salary of $32,500 to maintenance tech 2, a vacated position with an annual salary of $38,500, effective Tuesday, July 26. Mr. J. Riley. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. This is pretty straightforward. I've got a employee, a Tech 1 that's an excellent employee. I have a vacated position. I lost one of my techs to the Sheriff's Department. He decided to go to work for them. So all the luck in the world to him. And that leaves me an opening of a CS8-13. I would like, that position is open. I would like to move my maintenance tech 1 to that position of maintenance tech 2. I've already got the budget, the money's already there. These are just moving people within the positions that I already have.
And within your budget, huh?
I'm sorry?
Within your budget?
Within my budget, yes, sir.
There are additional responsibilities that come with the new position to
There
justify
is, right.
Yeah.
And when I hired him in at a lower position, he moved up very quickly. He's making a good HVAC tech, knows a lot about the jail. He's on call pretty much the first day I hired him. So he's proved to be a deserving individual that works very hard. And I think he's well worth it.
Good. Well, you do a good job running the maintenance department. I see that. Do I hear an appropriate motion?
I'll make the motion to approve and to allow to promote the maintenance tech employee CS8-1 annual salary of $32,500 and to maintenance tech number 2 vacated position CS8-13 annual salary of $38,500. And that'll be effective Tuesday, July 26th, today.
Okay.
Correct.
Motion been made by Commissioner Cotton to promote the Tech 1 to the CS8-13 within the budget, set to be effective July 26, 2022, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Riley.
Appreciate it.
Okay, at this time, which is 10:45, we are going to adjourn into executive session and to discuss the budget. 22 minutes to 12, and we have convened into Commissioners Court, having been in executive session. No action was taken in the executive session. There was a discussion of the budget and Ms. Kidd and the Commissioners Court is still working on the budget, and we are waiting on some very vital, important, necessary information from the Chief Appraiser, Eddie Rowe, and we have not gotten that information, and that needs to be received by us before we can actually do a proposed final budget. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.